My conjugate periodization explanation rationale, and my name is Peter Parcelletti, and I will be going through this for you. All right, so first, let's start with the client profile and training goal. 51-year-old male with a 30-plus year history of resistance training, some past PBRs, personal best records, 500-pound deadlift, 315-pound bench, 275 front squat. Granted, those were done in his younger years. You can see him over there to the right. He looks awfully familiar. This was a few years ago when he was showing students at the college that he works at that he still has man strength. And interestingly, you'll notice his left hand, you'll see the grip is opened. And this sort of lays out some of the stuff that I'll get into a little bit later. But 49-year-old man should be cognizant of warming up and or training before he does this. I had pulled it previously once, and this is a 405 cold deadlift. I pulled it once, and then I wanted one of the students to grab a picture video of it, so I did it a second time, and I injured my I think it was my elbow at the time, a little bit of my shoulder, which is got better. It's the other side that actually is a bit of an issue that we'll talk about. So anyway, there's that. So currently has a finger shoulder challenge on the right side, trigger finger, which is more or less healed, but it's about 90%, so there's still a little residual issue. Shoulders got a little bit of impingement, but that's also reconciling itself at this point. There is a history of low back degeneration, asymptomatic, and there's an anatomical leg length discrepancy. Client currently works with a physical therapist in Cairo for tune-ups and adjustments to try and mitigate, chronic stuff. Goal, really return to consistent resistance training. To be perfectly transparent, this client has not been doing a whole heck of a lot since he's been working on his tenure track career as a professor of kinesiology, which is ironic, and also working on his doctorate degree. So this client is very busy, but he does want to improve his max strength overall. That's his final goal. In particular, the sumo deadlift, the modified front squat, and the bench press. For structural anatomical reasons, those just seem to be the better choices than a traditional deadlift and or a traditional back squat. All right, so obviously for the requirements for max strength, we're going to need high intensity, robust movement patterns, full body stability so that the individual can stabilize where it needs to stabilize and move through the large joints, also mitigating against excessive aberrant movement. There is an aspect of reconditioning that he needs, so the client is currently a little bit deconditioned, requires preparation phase for heavier loads. The recommendation that I ultimately landed on, just the way the program structure, was approximately a 4-week of GPP. It'll be a hypertrophy-focused mesocycle, so we're building up some tissue quality to prepare for some heavier lifts. We'll focus on a 6 to 12 rep range with lower loads, a little bit lower loads, not super high loads, to build work capacity, strength, and tissue readiness. I don't know if he'll be pulling an airplane, but I thought that photo was rather interesting. All right, so baseline assessments, we're going to be doing a functional movement screen. We do want to get some movement screening on this client, specifically for some of those targeted gross pattern movement lifts that we'll be doing. We want to make sure that there's nothing that might be mitigating or preventing or present as problematic. And we're going to look in particular at ankle range of motion. We're going to do the whole FMS, but really want to see ankle range of motion. How does that look with the leg length discrepancy? Has that changed at all? Shoulder, the shoulder aptly scratch test or the shoulder mobility test. Obviously, we want to look at shoulder mobility, but an active straight leg raise. So we're looking at hip mobility. And then thoracic rotation is also an area that we want to look at, and we can do that with the FMS assessment. The programming priority is going to be initially at GPP, so we're going to really focus on foundational stuff and movement quality. and then we'll build upon that in the subsequent training cycle, emphasizing max strength, which is a little bit more of a performance goal. Skill would be if it was very team sport-ish, but because the patterns are pretty standard, pressing, pulling, and hinging, there's not a huge ton of skill, as we'll see in a minute. The GPP phase is going to focus on that full body hypertrophy training with the rep range, as I already said. We are also going to increase as we're working towards increasing the work capacity and increasing cross-sectional fiber development, which is going to obviously be crucial for the later strength training phase. Also added some mountain biking in as well for cardio GPP. The client has expressed interest in doing a little bit of mountain biking. All right, so injury considerations. Current, past, we talked about the finger, the trigger finger, the shoulder, low back degeneration. Historically has always had a little bit of a tight shoulder capsule, so got to be mindful that a true front squat isn't probably in his repertoire, so a modified front squat is what we're going to live with. And because we want to be cognizant of compressing direct spinal compression, we're going to offset the bar in the front squat versus the direct back squat, although we will train with a little bit of back squatting. Max effort poses obviously an injury risk, so we have to be conscientious of this at his age. But the 30-year training history also is a benefit because there's the client has been able to partake in a lot of develop a lot of those movement patterns and is pretty proficient at this point. So we're going to really look at 5-rep max testing in the initial beginning. We're not going to do 1RMs, although we're going to look at doing a 1RM at the very, very end of the program just to see where the true 1RM is. And we're going to do a mandatory 48 hours rest between full body sessions for recovery, at least in the GPP phase. Really thinking the first, working out on Monday, taking Tuesday, Wednesday off with coming back a Thursday, I think is the way I structured it. If I didn't, oh gosh, I hope I did. I'm thinking about it now as I'm going through it in my mind. But when we move into the strength phase, it's going to look a little different, and we'll manage that a little bit differently when we get there. All right, so phase 1 will be that GPP focus. Phase 2 will be weeks 5 through 16. It's going to be really max strength phase, utilizing the conjugate periodization model. We're also going to take blood pressure, body fat, weight, obviously FMS. We'll do the 5RMs, and we'll do that test out. All right, so I selected really a mixed periodization model for this particular client, using a nonlinear in the very beginning because it has some very significant benefits. It does improve performance enhancement. It varies the intensity week to week, basically microcycle or day to day. You're getting a high, low, and medium intensity, which will alter the volume. So obviously, as intensity increases, volume decreases as the weight of the weight becomes easier, and more volume is added. So you get that sort of inverse relationship. It prevents a loss of previously developed ability, unlike the strict linear model where you're sort of just kind of going, and then you are changing into a different phase and you're going to lose some of that. But there is a limitation. It's diminished return for advanced athletes and clients. So unfortunately, it's a little bit. It could be, it can be boring after a while as well. So the conjugate periodization came from the former Soviet Union Western Bloc, popularized by Louis Simmons at Westside Barbell here in the United States, but it's been around for quite some time. It focuses on high-level development through overreaching blocks, followed by a restitution, which is decreased volume intensity, focus on speed. So that was the original design. Westside Barbell adapted it and basically said, we're going to do 2 maximum effort days, focusing on bench, squat, deadlift, and really it's an upper body and a lower body, so you're going to rotate that lower body between squat and deadlift on your 2 max effort days, and it's usually going to reach 90%. And then there's going to be 2 dynamic effort days, which will have similar supportive lifts, but not nearly as intense, focusing on speed and variable resistance with bands and chains. The volume and intensity consistently alter, developing adaptations concurrently without dedicated phases. So that's the advantage of this model, is it just sort of runs. It achieves higher abilities without losing those adaptations, and enhanced adaptations with decreased volume. And it prioritizes variation and exercise selection to minimize CNS accommodation and improve motor learning, which we know is beneficial. Changes in exercises seem to be a little bit more beneficial than just kind of doing the same exercises over and over from a pure strength, hypertrophy, and motor performance perspective. So putting this together for me was really, really interesting. I had always wanted to explore the conjugate system, so I was really happy to be able to do that in this course. Again, it's altering those max effort and dynamic effort days, allowing concurrent adaptions. But we're going to have to kind of adjust this program for this client. We want to prioritize those exercise variations, and we do that using really different bars, tools. So think, kettlebells, different style bars, from standard bar to safety squat bar to hurricane bar. Like, there's all different bars that we can use, and obviously the bands and chains for accommodated resistance, which enhance that motor learning and ultimately prevent accommodation. You're rarely repeating the same exercises. So that's really the Westside Barbell version of the conjugate system. So what we're going to do for this client is we're going to focus on the main lifts, the max strength. It's his number one goal, which in turn will probably improve his overall work capacity to some extent. We've removed the mountain biking as part of this second phase, the strength phase, because we want to really be conscientious of overtraining. Mountain biking obviously has hills, and does require a little bit of explosive effort, and we just want to be conscientious from a recovery perspective, because this is a 51-year-old adult who is no longer 20, and we got to be smart about this. Now we're going to have a mandatory 72-hour rest between max effort days. So you're going to see a max effort day on Monday, and most likely a max effort day on Thursday or Friday in the program, making sure that we're really getting that rest. And we're going to try and avoid repeating lifts through weeks 5 through 12. But it's going to be really dependent on the gym equipment, and we're going to have, we've removed the Olympic or the plyometric speed and power phases, because the way the conjugate model works is speed and power is built into the dynamic effort days. So injury-specific things that we're going to adjust: no repetitive spinal flexion or spinal flexion with rotation, core-based exercises. Westside Barbell, you can find Google online. They have a bunch of lifts. In some of their textbooks, they have lifts. They do a lot of spinal flexion. And I want to kind of jump over to this gentleman on the right, the third bullet point: no performing the traditional Westside style box squats due to the low back injury. You can see here, they actually sit on the box and deload their entire lower body, which of benefit allows you to get out of the hole, really generate force production. But this comes at a cost with the spine. You can see this gentleman in particular, he's got a pretty well flexed lumbar spine, and this is only going to deteriorate his discs, and unfortunately he doesn't know that long term. So we will be doing more of a touch and go with this client. He will just kind of find the box, still maintain all the integrity in the entire body, and then just come right off. So you're never sitting down, you're never quote unquote unloading the legs, hips. You're going to be actually just touching and going. And we'll have some corrective exercises built through the GPP phase, and then there's some sporadic, making sure that we're still doing some shoulder work, as well as the warm-up is going to include some shoulder mob exercises, including some stretching, variations on stretching, PNF stretching, static stretching, obviously foam rolling as well, to kind of hopefully maintain tissue quality, or tissue range of motion, excuse me. All right, so here are my works cited, and then if you obviously hopefully can review my program. This was really fun for me because it allowed me to explore the literature and really try and understand the system. Because if anyone's ever tried to listen to Louis Simmons, I have a lot of videos from him, and it really not particularly well organized from an academic perspective. I know the guy is he's considered quite the legend in powerlifting, but I also don't always agree 100% with some of the statements and the information that he's kind of referencing out. The other piece to this, and I didn't look like I didn't put it in here, but we have to modify this overall program because a lot of the athletes, obviously in powerlifting, are going to be using drugs because that allows enhanced protein synthesis. So we really had to minimize the total volume, especially on a 51-year-old drug-free male. That's really, really important as well. So I'm looking forward to actually working through this program this summer after the class. And if you have any comments or questions or feedback, I greatly appreciate it. Thanks.